What's up, everybody?
Hello.
Hello, and we're back.
We are back up in here. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Been a little bit.
Yeah. Kushe Ukubuya. Good to be back up in this piece. So, Kushe Ukubuya. And I still don't quite have it down, but that's just about it. So anyway, it's good to be back. Right. So we back up here in our little podcast studio, right? Instead of shooting downstairs.
Yeah.
We kind of try to change it up a little bit because we don't have the most elaborate setup, right? Because we watch all these podcasts on TV and everybody got the clear cameras and expensive setups and multiple camera angles, and of course we've been trying to play around with that for a while now, but we like low budget. We low budget, so we're not trying to do too much before we become too big. Not that we even planning to become big or anything. It's not even our focus.
It serves its purpose.
Mm-hmm. and so we were having a lot of problems, and the last couple weeks almost, I've been up here playing around with all this stuff, trying to get different things to work because it's been so long since we sat up here in this space.
Yeah.
And I think we might have done one fairly recently, but for the most part we've been downstairs the last few times.
We were up here.
And so I want to be reminded that this is like a podcast that we're doing. So I want to be in a more traditional setting.
Yeah, it's easy to just plop on the couch downstairs and start recording.
Plus, it's more comfortable downstairs and it's nicer. So but again, we just want to continue to project the air of a podcast. 'Cause, it's not like we're out here every day like a lot of people, content creators and stuff like that. But so I've been struggling with all kind of stuff with the mics and the cameras and stuff, and I had to get rid of all the other few cameras that we had, the webcams and everything, because we used to try to shoot with 3 different camera angles so you can see close-ups and that sort of thing. But it's just too much, and quite frankly, my laptop computer is not powerful enough to handle all that.
But then the update can mess up everything.
Yeah, so
just when they, having updates on your computer and stuff, but. Here we are.
Oh, the software updates, when they take away the features of some of the free software that you use and that sort of thing. But it's just too much. It's more trouble than what it's worth. And so I found that it's easier for us to just set up the iPhone, run our USB mic into it, and capture the footage and stuff. And it doesn't have to look like all the top tier podcasts out there, but
what we need to
accomplish what we need to do. So, but we gave y'all the set and everything, so we back. We back into our space up here, and we're who knows, we might go back downstairs. But anyway, let's just go ahead and get to it. I don't want to be out here too long. No more than about 30 minutes. I think about 20 minutes or something like that. We'll see how it goes. But let's just talk about the impetus for this particular episode, if you will, that we're doing. Because the last one that we did, it was shortly after we came back from the Soweto Derby. Right. That was, again, a memorable experience and stuff.
It was.
And, a lot of engagement on that video. And as always, Mazazi, we appreciate, the engagement that we get from y'all out there, because y'all, kind of really, honestly, keep us going.
Right.
Because our content, and I didn't realize that you can actually see who subscribes to your channel. Like, you can go into YouTube and you can actually see all the various profiles that subscribe to your channel. I didn't know that. I never knew that. And by the way, we are up to, as of like almost 2 weeks ago now, definitely a week ago, we went over 900 subscribers. And I couldn't believe that.
Getting close to 1,000.
Because I could not believe that we had like 9. Because I told Melanie, I said, if we'll do an episode of video
when we break
if we no, I said 900. I said if we break 900, because we were like 896 or something at the time, right? And considering that it's not something that we push, when we get on with the like, share, subscribe, we got to get this video to 5,000 people and blah blah blah. We don't even focus on that.
I remember when we just had 85.
We didn't even have. We got 50 just before we went to Johannesburg to close to take occupancy of our place, because we did our first live from over there. And you got to have 50 subscribers.
Oh yeah.
So we've come a long way since then, and
and we're excited about that.
Yeah, and so, but we just, our thing is we just want everything to be organic. If people like what we do, or whatever, then hey, subscribe. Check us out, whatever. I'm not out there, looking to pressure people into pressing that button. I see. It's just amazing that people have all the different sayings that they do, and that's good. It works for them. Yeah. But I just prefer to just be chill and just kind of let things just kind of flow and let things happen.
Too much to try to remember all that.
Man, tell me. I'm bad about that, right? So, so we have I think 902, 903 subscribers, somewhere around there. So again, and that's when I went and I looked the other day. That's when I saw you could see the profiles that subscribe to you, and most of the people in our list are from the continent, and based on the names that I see, our South African fam.
I'm not.
So that's majority of our subscribers and everything. So but that's just we just really appreciate y'all out there for checking us out, and we hope that you continue to when we do come out and share content. So anyway, that kind of leads me back to this particular episode that we're doing, and just kind of talking about something in particular that came out of that last episode from the Soweto Derby. We were talking about just the experience of everything, of just getting into the stadium, making it to the stadium, and just the madness of everything, right? And how we didn't get a chance to get our seats, even though we paid for a lot of seats, and we couldn't sit down, and we just couldn't move through the crowd because it was so much, right? And I had quite a few people that commented on the post that that revealed quite a few interesting things. Number one, as I suspected, the stadium was definitely overpacked, because apparently the stadium authority, over there had, I guess, released a statement or something saying that they're gonna really try to tighten that whole situation up, because I know that if it was that crowded in the stadium, even after it was supposedly a situation where they don't really sell out all the tickets because they leave a reserve, for people to move around or whatever, but it was still packed from wall to wall, pitch to roof, if you will, of the ceiling. So it was definitely over capacity. But anyway, not something I complain about or whatever. Personally, it is what it is. I'm just glad that everybody, that it was, everything was safe and everything, and people enjoyed the match, and we got a chance to experience it to the level that we did, and definitely looking forward to the next time we go. But there was some different comments out there, and that was one of them. But then one comment in particular, because I'm hoping that it didn't come off, and I specifically said that it was not something that we were frustrated about or angry about or whatever. We kind of expected it, but didn't expect the way things turned out as far as just the crowd and just but it was at the end of the day, it was cool. But somebody in particular, and it was one of our subscribers, Shipoma Gotsi. Okay. So by the way, shouts out to good brother Shipoma Gotsi out there.
Shout out.
So he made a particular comment, and I have to assume it's a he just based on the profile picture and some exchanges that we had back and forth. But it's the internet and everything. But we're gonna roll with the good brother situation right there.
Okay.
So shouts out to the good brother again, Shema Potsi. Excuse me, to Shipoma Gotsi.
Okay.
I'm gonna get that eventually.
Yeah.
My bad, brother.
He will let you know if you're not pronouncing it right.
We're gonna get it. So he had posted something, and he said something to the effect of, he said, look at it in a sense of it being a powerful acknowledgement from the ancestors, something to that effect, more so than becoming frustrated by the fact that it was an experience that we probably did not get the opportunity to enjoy to the level that we planned when we set out, because we just didn't know. I mean, we were sitting here when we bought tickets. It's our first experience and everything, But again, I never saw it as that type of situation. Anyway, and I stressed that. I stressed that to him, and I'm sure he understood that. But I just wanted to, that's kind of the impetus for this, because I actually said on that last video, I said, you know what, I'm going to speak to that, because it really got me to thinking when I read what he wrote, because I just got to thinking the way things have just been going from the time we set out on this whole entire journey to just different things that we've encountered and that have happened,
right?
Since that time, right?
Yeah.
And one thing in particular, if you think back to when we were traveling back the last time, right, from the Soweto Derby, and we were catching our plane back. Okay. Now, of course, our plane was delayed on arrival and stuff. I think we ended up leaving about an hour and a half later. Because the weather had gotten bad. It was a bad lightning storm and everything. The lightning strikes, around the airport were pretty bad. And so when we finally got on the plane, I think most people were ready to just get out of there, get in the air, and make our way back home, right? Yeah. So as we took our seats, right, and they got ready to finally take off because we got delayed while we were still sitting at the gate waiting to pull away. Yeah. And they delayed us again for about another 15 minutes, right? Yeah. And so by this time, it's natural for people to get a little bit impatient and antsy, right? Like, man, get us up in the air already, right?
But then, for me, I definitely understood and was happy because just with all these planes and stuff in the
now we see what's going on here in the United States.
Exactly. So I was happy.
But that's a different discussion altogether. I mean, we weren't even aware of that at the time. It's just all that stuff started happening when we got back. But point well taken. But back to that situation, right? People were getting just ready to go, right? And so the situation that unfolded in the center aisle, right, next to us, right? So we're sitting there, and Melanie is obviously not the type of person that's eager or enthusiastic about telling the story. So I try to give her an opportunity to be a little bit more forward. Now, don't get me wrong, she runs her mouth, right? But she gets in front of this camera, and she, for some reason, she doesn't engage as much as.
I don't have a problem with telling the story. So you were talking. I don't have a problem with telling the story.
But I'm trying to cue you. I'm trying to lay back a little bit and kind of toss you an alley-oop a little bit and give you a little bit more opportunity. And you just sitting there like, let me swing, man.
Yeah, okay, well,
I'm just saying, I'll tell the story. Yeah. I'll tell the story. You can contribute where you can or want to or whatever. So we were sitting down, buckling up, getting ready to pull back from the gate. And we had a situation that unfolded in the center section. You're talking a big plane. So you got 3 seats on each side, then I think you have 5 seats across the middle section. And so we were about on the wing, and there was a section over in the center of the plane about where the wings are that the flight attendants came through, and they tried to clear that area out. Yeah. But unfortunately, there were some people that were sitting there, and I think they had been placed there for some reason because they had some other seats. Yeah. And
everybody was moving around because the plane was not completely full. And so people were moving around. People wanted to sit next to each other. Some people wanted to lay out. I was happy nobody was sitting in between us because I was able to stretch out. And so I think that's what it was. And so because it was only I think it was only 3 of them.
It was 2.
Or somebody else.
Well, 3 individuals total. But the 2 that we're talking about. So this is a significant thing. Yeah. So this whole entire scene began to unfold because the individuals sitting in those seats, because they were free seats, they were open, nobody was sitting there for about 3 rows. They didn't really see a problem with sitting there, and I agree. After all, the plane crew said that they'd let us kind of move around so that everybody's comfortable. So anyway, this argument began to ensue between the flight attendant and one of the passengers, and it started to get a little bit, high in volume, right? Not like an out and out shouting match, but it was definitely a scene that began to unfold. So we're looking over there and we like, man, what's going on, right?
Because the flight attendant asked them to move, right? Because that was not their assigned seat.
It was not their assigned seat.
It was not their assigned seat. Right. And so the daughter wanted to sit next to her mother, which is why they moved, because the seats that they had paid for to sit next to each other, but somehow that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And so with this being a long flight, because it turned out to be almost an 18-hour flight, they wanted to sit next to each other. So that is the reason why they were sitting there. Okay,
so that turned into a big to-do.
It did.
Right, and it turned into a bit of a commotion. And at this time, as it started to escalate, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, I was saying to myself, I was like, man, come on, just follow the instructions and stuff. I know it may not be right. It may not, you may be pissed off a little bit. I get that, I understand it, but let's just get up in the air.
Yeah.
That was kind of like my attitude in the moment.
Because we couldn't move. The pilot was not going to take off because of where they were sitting, and so the flight attendant was trying to explain.
Yeah, and the pilot came on and they were talking about the balancing of the plane, and I guess with the fuel, because the fuel is in the wings. And so at that point I'm thinking, okay, this is a safety issue. If they're saying that they need to have certain seats empty because of takeoff and the amount of people on the plane, and weight distribution needs to be. And so I'm like, okay, I want to make it across this ocean. So that was the mindset I was in. So I was a little bit more leaning toward like, just comply. And then the other thing was, how quick they are to rip people off a plane and take them off in handcuffs.
That was going to happen.
I thought that was going to be next. I was man, I would not want to see them get led out of here. Two black women, led off the plane in handcuffs, and now they're going to miss their flight and they're going to go to jail. Right. So, but anyway, long story short, or long story longer, they somehow got it resolved. Yeah. And they moved. They were upset, and they were rightfully upset. When I kind of learned what the situation really was, because it turns out these individuals, they were like diamond level because they travel a lot.
Right.
So they are entitled to those perks, the best seats and all that kind of stuff, accommodations. So they were really kind of being put out of place. And so I understand them being upset in retrospect, right? Right. So anyway, at one point, when one of the ladies got up, when they got up to move,
because I went to the bathroom.
You went to the bathroom? One of the ladies got up and began to move, and she was upset, rightfully so. Yeah. And then the other lady that was sitting in front of her got up and started to move. Yeah. And when she got up
and turned around,
I looked and I got a side profile view. I said, "Wait, that's
yep, knew them."
That was funny. We knew the individuals, or one of the individuals at least. The other one was our daughter, who I knew of our daughter, but I had never gotten a chance to meet her because it turns out that one of the individuals, used to be one of my colleagues in another company that I worked for like 14 years ago, and it's literally been about 14 years since I have seen her. Last time I saw her, we had gone out to lunch because I was getting ready to leave the company and go to another company. And, we went out to lunch and had a good time. And we, always had a good working relationship at the company. She still works at the company. And so it just blew my mind. I was like, I cannot believe that I'm on the plane from South Africa with this individual who I haven't seen in 14 years. Yeah. And she's in a whole situation that by this time she hadn't seen me. Yeah. She hadn't seen us.
Not at that point.
And really, I didn't get a chance to finally speak to her until well on into the flight, like the next morning, because we had gone to sleep and eat and stuff, and they had moved around and found a seat, and we were so tired, I didn't know where they had been sitting, but I knew I was going to try to, reach her before we landed and stuff to reconnect. So at one point, I think it was early morning or late in the middle of the night, you had gotten up and gone to the bathroom. Yeah. And so I guess they had moved around and they were stretching like most people do on long haul flights at some point. You get out, stretch your legs, walk around a little bit. And it just so happens I was awake and I saw her coming up the aisle. And because your seat was empty on the aisle, I was able to just lean over as she came past, and I said, psst. And called her by now. I said, "What are you doing on this flight?" And she looked at me. She turned around and looked, and her jaw dropped. She was like, "Oh my God!"
World.
Right? Small world. Now, so backstory: this individual, as I told my wife, because even though she had heard of my wife many times when we worked together, she had never actually gotten a chance to meet her. So that was her first time actually meeting Melanie. And I told her Melanie was coming back from the bathroom. And so Melanie came back and sat down, and we stood there and we talked. Yeah, we just caught up. And so my colleague, she's actually from the continent. Originally, she's actually Cameroon. And I don't know if it's correct for me to say Cameroonian or Cameroon. I think Cameroon. Well, the country is Cameroon.
Right.
But anyway, she's from Cameroon. And just so happens, you know what, I gotta stop putting this cup here because the microphone is gonna pick it up. It just so happens that she and her daughter had been in Johannesburg. For how long, I don't know, but they had been spending some time there. And she told us that she had relatives that live there in Johannesburg and that owns property.
Not too far from us.
Not too far from where we live.
Yeah.
Down in Johannesburg South. And so naturally, the conversation progressed there. And so then eventually her daughter came by and joined in on the conversation. And we just got to chopping it up. And everything was just light. And so by this point, you know, all the other people on the plane were looking at them, the troublemakers, right? You know, having a conversation with us. Right there on the aisle and stuff. So I just like, I wonder what these people are thinking now. It's like, but it was just so funny.
It was.
You know, during the course of our conversation and some of the things that we had a chance to discuss, you know, bringing her up to date on what, you know, what's been going on with me and stuff, and that we had bought the place in Johannesburg and what our future plans are and all that kind of stuff. So it just turned into a great conversation. So then that ties into this whole theme around confirmation, ancestral confirmation, those kind of things, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, back when I was working with her, you know, I knew she would travel back and forth all the time back to her home country and stuff, in which, you know, as you know, she mentioned, they're doing their thing, building their home there, which you know, I don't know what her didn't get the details of the plans and everything, but you know, I tend to know how these things work, right? You have people in the diaspora that are from, you know, countries on the continent. They tend to have a home there that they build, and maybe they go back there at some point. And so, you know, it's that, you know, type of situation. And so, but you know, when I started to just think about all of them, like, you know, we're having this conversation, and you know, and we, you know, connected back up, and we hope to you know, be in contact. You know, I did reach out to her via LinkedIn and send her a message, as I, you know, promised I would and stuff, so that we can, you know, just kind of have some link where we can have future conversations around this thing, you know, as far as we're concerned, they're concerned, or other people, you know. But it was just another one of those things that, of all of the situations that could have unfolded, you know, an individual that I have not seen in 14 years, that's from the continent herself, that happened to be in another entire country. She's from West Africa. We were in South Africa, and we ended up on the same plane, coming back to the United States together. Yeah, you know, and having that, those affirmations, those confirmations and affirmations, because, you know, even with us having a conversation with her daughter was fascinated by what we had to say about our experience there and what we were doing and stuff. You know, and now she's interested and she's, you know, she's, you know, I don't know. We say how closely removed or whatever, but I mean, she's next generation from her mom, who I don't know if she was herself born in Cameroon. She might have been, I'm not sure. But at any rate, being much closer than we are, to the lineage and the culture, but yet she was still fascinated that we had embarked upon that type of journey, and stressed some interest in you know, maintaining some future connection for her own thing that she may be looking into herself with pursuing property in the Johannesburg area.
But you're seeing more of that now.
Exactly. You know, which leads to the next point. So that was just another one of those confirmations. And then we look at things like, you know, just the overall interest in South Africa. Yes. Specifically, you know, that we got people that we've been, you know, talking to about our journey, you know, for the last couple of years now. And I've had it said to me just recently, man, I thought you were radical. I was saying, man, you know, this dude is radical with all that South Africa talk, and then going and actually buying a property. And now they find themselves, they look around with what's going on here in the United States. And everything that's transpiring. And they like, and now they've like really taken it seriously. They don't see what we did a couple years ago, started more than a couple years ago, 5 years ago, when we really started as being radical. Because I'm having more conversations, having more phone calls. I mean, everything from our doctors. We go to for our doctor's visits, and we have conversations, and they have, you know, you always have the question about, you know, when's the last time you traveled? Have you traveled to, you know, have you been exposed to this or that? You know, and it naturally leads to the conversation. Oh yeah, I was just in South Africa recently, or I'm headed that way, you know, blah blah blah. And then people always think about, just even when I went and got my new eyeglasses the other day, you know, when he asked me, he saw me wearing the Chiefs jersey, and he asked me if I was a soccer fan, and he was really amazed when I told him that, oh yeah, I'm becoming, right? And I mentioned to him that we have a place in South Africa. And so people naturally become fascinated and they ask a lot of questions.
Exactly.
And so that's the way it's been with us. I mean, family, friends, people reaching out, sending me text messages saying, hey, I want to talk to you about this because I'm interested.
More about it.
I'm interested in maybe buying some property in South Africa, or I'm ready to get out of here. I'm ready to move. And I've heard a lot of great things about South Africa and I'm thinking about going over there, or I'm going over there.
Exactly.
As in the case,
some people just said, I'm just out.
we got some of our people that just went over there last week. That we connected with a while back, and have remotely had conversations. We had a video call with them as they came through Atlanta, flying over. A little bit more than a week ago now, probably close to 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
That they settled in Johannesburg.
They did,
and this time they went to settle on their first trip. So I mean, but at the same time, with they do no different than we do, building relationships with people, interacting with other content creators who are established over there already, or who have some connections over there, like us, in which I found that, very that's just really, that leaves me awestruck when I see things like that, because it's like, you remember you have conversations with people, or somebody may post a comment on your video or something, and you start to have some dialogue with them, and it, at some point maybe you have an email conversation, but it's just amazing to see how things just organically grow and develop out of the smallest thing.
But I think that's what it's going to take, because so many people have misconceptions, about Africa, period. Right. So I think with having these conversations, for those of us who've been over there, who's traveled over there, more and more people now that they're hearing it, it's opening up more to the idea of, okay, it's not all what I heard.
Right.
And excited about going over there and the opportunities that they can also bring and help as well over there.
Yeah, and they not only hear, they see.
Exactly.
Because they see the footage on the ground. They're like, man, they getting down like that over there. And so, it's just one of those things. And so I think, for me, as I said earlier, I've never really seen myself as an influencer, and I still don't.
Right.
We just a couple people that come out here and just sit in front of the camera every now and then and just kind of chop it up a little bit, have conversations no different than we do when we're sitting around the house talking about different stuff, or watching YouTube videos, or discussing certain articles or whatever. It's just no different, but it really reminds me of the power that you have really when you have these platforms.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's why I try to just kind of stay true to our journey and how we're approaching it, because it may not be the same as the next person or the way that they envision their situation, but there's some value, I think,
absolutely,
in each of our journeys.
I agree.
And so, but definitely, shouts out to our fam that's over there now. Katrina and Terry.
Settling over there.
Yeah, so we definitely wish them well, and last couple times I reached out to them, it's everything that they imagine, and I imagine it's gonna continue to get better, and I expect big things for them over there.
Absolutely,
based upon what we've learned of them as is. So just glad they're enjoying themselves over there. So definitely always happy for the fam that are making their way over there.
Right, and I'm happy to see it. I'm very happy to see it.
I mean, I had a conversation just last week with another individual that texted, and I ended up speaking to her. She's probably going to be planning a trip over there and very interested about relocation. And purchasing property, so that she can have a homestead, if you will, there. So wish anyone well that have the take it upon themselves to do that. So a lot of action, man. South Africa is, and I expect that's not going to change.
I don't think so either.
Because for some reason, man, South Africa is it's a special place. Yeah. As far as I've been able to see, beautiful place.
And you have to be, you have to experience it for yourself as well. You can always listen to, other people's journey and their experiences, but until you go and experience it for yourself and then see, and I think that's what's happening. A lot of people are realizing, that like, oh, okay, I can do this. You start out afraid, but then I think a lot of people are moving past the fear now and just saying, hey, I want to make this my reality now.
And they see others doing it.
Yes, and so they know that it's possible.
Yeah,
it's possible.
And I think that's the message to the diaspora. And I find myself in various forums and stuff, and I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it. As far as the continent's future, I truly believe that the power is in the African/Black diaspora. Across the world, particularly those of us here in the United States.
Right.
Because and I'm not sure. I'm not sure if how much our brothers and sisters on the continent understand this and know this. And I haven't looked up the figures yet, but I thought about doing it. But I know as far as individual countries go, it's a staggering number by comparison. But I think the continent as a whole. So consider this, fam, over on the continent. Do you know what the annual purchasing power or spending power of the Black American demographic is per year? Just give y'all a second to think about that. Now I'll tell you. The annual purchasing power for Black America is 1.5, actually 1.6 trillion US dollars per year. That is a spending power of Black Americans. Annual, per year, $1.6 trillion. So,
and we're starting to realize that more and more each day.
So let's just assume, just for ease of sake, I don't know what the rand to dollar conversion is right now. It's probably $18, $19 somewhere, rand to the US dollar. But let's just say if it was $10, right? So if we assume round number, 1.5 trillion, if it was 10 rand to $1 US dollar, you're looking at 1.5 times 10, that's what, 15 trillion US dollars, right? Now let's just double that to get closer to where the rand to US dollar is, closer to 20, right? 30 trillion rand annual Black American spending power, right? That's a lot of cheese. That's a lot of cheese.
A whole lot.
And imagine if more of us directed our resources rather than being caught up in the illusion of the American dream. Yes. Because in many ways it's an illusion. There are many great things that you can get out of this life here, right? But at the same time, let's just keep it real. And I'm not going to get too much into that whole discussion out here because I am measured about how I discuss certain things or whatever, because not everything is just meant to be put in front of everybody. And I think that's something that we need to get better about as a diaspora, right? I think we need to shift more into that Underground Railroad kind of mode. We need to use these platforms to spark the conversations, to move them out of these spaces and into the personal spaces.
Right.
Me and you face to face. Let's make these moves, right? That's what I feel.
Right.
And I think we need to focus on figuring out how to do more of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why when we're on the ground there, we try to do more of that sort of thing. We're connecting with people, and doing things that way. So that's kind of like a piece of the message to the diaspora, particularly those of us here sitting on this side. And with that, we, like you said, more of us need to open up our mind to the possibilities. And so, the only thing that we can do is what we do is just continue, even if you just reach one person at a time, right?
Having conversation,
continue to try to be a catalyst and stuff and show people. You can only talk so much, right?
Yeah.
But, I do anticipate and I hope for more of our people to wake up from that sleep and figure out how to move in a manner to make those things more possible and to have more impact. Because I tell you, man, it seems like a fantasy kind of thing, but even if a small portion, I just think about, we got all these celebrities over here, man, that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. If you take and convert that to rand, you got all these $100 million entertainers, rappers, producers, actors, actresses. They have enough net worth that's probably greater. My guess is, many of the of countries on the continent or equivalent. I mean, we got some billionaires over here.
Oh yeah.
You got billionaires over there as well.
Yeah.
Equivalent US. But I'm just saying, just trying to make it all make sense, right? But if more of us start to figure out how to deploy our capital and our resources and our intellectual resources and educational resources, financial resources, this thing could be
It could be big.
This could be huge. And so that's where my mind is always. And I do wonder how, like our brothers and sisters there, and I've kind of engaged on this, here and then. You get a sense of it, but I just hope that that our people over there, that they understand these things and as well, and that they think about that as they continue to learn more about us, as we look to learn more about them, and to cut through a lot of the misinformation and to deprogram ourselves with with all that's been placed upon us because of agendas that have never had our best interests as people, right? So that's kind of what it's about to me. So that's something that I always think about, and that I challenge our brothers and sisters over there to think about as well. Let's try to do more, or when we have the opportunity in front of us, to seize the opportunity and keep that open mind about those possibilities. And even if it's a small thing, try to make something happen. Some relationship, gain some understanding, connect with some resource, network, just a lot. And and different people. You got content creators out there that operates in all those kind of spaces.
Bit more of that.
But
I mean, more so than in the past. Which I think is positive.
Yeah, it's amazing to see. But that's pretty much it. I just wanted to come out here and just kind of talk about those, to address that whole thing, of ancestral confirmation, because I do think that is very much in play, is that they are speaking to all of us on both sides of the ocean and across oceans, wherever we are. And I do think that we are being called back home, that is to the continent. And when I look at my colleague, that they're going back, right, and establishing. I have to assume going back. If you're building a home, I assume probably a compound. You're going back.
Exactly.
Because your work here is done.
Yes.
That's kind of the way I feel, in a sense.
Yeah.
At a point, our work too is going to be done.
Yeah. I mean, you see a lot of the content creators and stuff there, talking more and more about that, and I think putting a lot of, information out there, just to try to, either to dispel, like you say, some of the misconceptions, to offer, different insights and stuff. So I think that type of stuff is helpful. I'm seeing a lot more of that, on with a lot of the content creators now. They're speaking more to, just us opening our minds and being able to see something and do something different, and don't stay with the status quo.
Right. Yeah. And when I say, our work is done, that means done here, but now ready to do the work there. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. Just being in a position finally to get ready to do that. So, we'll be ready for that. And so, I'm looking forward to when I get back over there. I got to go get these braces done. And that's the other thing. I decided that, and that's one other thing before we get out of here. We get over there, and like I talked about, that spending power. I pretty much decided, because I'm sitting here rocking Mr. Price Special right here.
Yes.
Some of y'all probably got a shirt like this.
Got some nice
stuff. Yeah, man. So I've decided that all of my shopping, I had to go buy something this week because we got an event. I told Melanie, I was like, I feel like I'll never shop in the United States again.
Yeah.
And when it comes to clothes and stuff, whenever I want to shop for clothes, I'm gonna wait till I come over there. Clothes, shoes. Even though I've done it every time I've been there, but I just came to that realization this last time.
Yeah.
It's like, to our people here, man, y'all have no idea. Those of you that haven't been over there or know there, and it's just so great because the quality of the clothing, and you look at the cost that we pay for the clothing there, and of course we get it, y'all. This is not a flex. It's more so just an appreciation or a realization. I can't control the prices over there, right? But I am thankful that I'm able to shop and get things for the price that I am there. And so
good
with that,
quality clothing.
Oh, absolutely. And so with that, I'm like, I look forward to, we go over there, hey, brothers and sisters here on this side, get over there and deploy some of those dollars. Like I said, deploy some of that $1.6 trillion
over there,
U.S. equivalent over there on the continent, and particularly South Africa.
Yeah.
You know, people need jobs over there. We got everybody losing their jobs here.
Yes.
But you got an opportunity to like I said, to contribute.
Yes.
To that economy and that society over there. Mm-hmm. And you would not be disappointed, man, because I mean they got gear over there.
A whole lot. I mean, it was something to see.
Clothes, man.
Yes.
We think we got clothes here.
Yeah, it was like, woo.
But anyway, so that's pretty much it. We just wanted to come out here and just talk about this whole thing, this confirmation thing, and it is a pretty deep conversation that can get pretty deep.
Yeah.
You know, but we'll just leave it here, and it's as always, it's good to come out in front of the camera, and I know we're not out here all the time. You know, we're not daily content creators, but we just try to keep it, you know, honest and just organic.
And when we have something to talk about, we don't want to just be coming out just to be hopping on. You know, if we're not getting ready to talk about something that's going to be meaningful, and that we feel that, you know, you guys can get something out of it. Right. So I think that's what's most important to us. Yeah.
No other motive than that. Mm-hmm. You know, just it come along the journey, our particular journey and our particular approach.
Right.
That's what we want to present. You know, we're not as sexy as the next person.
Nope, and not trying to
Melly's sexy with her. Y'all see her hair, right? She looking like one of them Zulu maidens. Yeah, we
chopped off today.
Yeah, we chopped it on back down. So occasionally she's had to rock it like that. Maybe I'll show y'all a picture of how she looked 20 years ago with that same haircut. So this is not new to us. Occasionally, every so many years, she'll go back to that because she has to deal with issues with her hair.
Yes, for my ladies.
But anyway, fortunately, it looks good on her, and it works for her. So, but anyway, that's what it is, y'all. So we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. And we appreciate the time that y'all spend with us, as always. And as we always say,
share, and subscribe.
Yeah, y'all can do that too. Remember that at the end, she did.
I know.
But man, at the end of the day, it's
Nell
and me, and this has been the podcast. It's been a while since we've done that.
I know.
All right, y'all, take it easy.
Holla.
All right.